What is up, everybody? It's Chad Ostrowski here from the Teach Better team with the one, the only, the amazing Dave Schmidow. Dave, how are you doing this morning?
Dude, I am only here for that intro. That is the only reason I show up for these live feeds. It's just so I can see that intro and feel like I'm a part of that. That gets me fired up every time I see it and hear it, man. It's so good.
It does. Like, I forget it exists until I get to do these, and then I get really excited when I get to press the button that makes it happen. I want to thank Mr. Jeff Gargis for putting those together. He did a great job. Gets me fired up every time. I hope it got everyone else fired up. We already got some people watching. So if you're watching, put hashtag live. If you're watching on the replay later in the day, if you're catching us later, put hashtag replay. Good morning. Tell us where you're coming from. Tell us where you're watching from. But Dave, today is the first of, I hope, many of what we're about to do, and that is recapping this amazing event that's actually been happening for some time. And I've gone live a couple times by myself, but we really want to formalize this idea and start recapping the amazing conversations we're having with administrators from across the country. So we have these weekly masterminds, and some people don't know about this, some people do. And if you want to learn more, you can go to teachbetter.com/mastermind. We have these amazing masterminds every single week. Mr. Schmidow has done an amazing job kind of taking the helm of these and really turning them into something even more amazing than they ever were before. And these are weekly conversations with literally administrators from across the world. And I was going to say across the country, but it's literally become an international event the last few weeks, which has been absolutely amazing. So Dave, could you give us the short synopsis of what is our admin mastermind? And if you're an administrator or an educational leader, an instructional coach, and you just want to be part of that admin mastermind, talk about educational leadership, what is it? And how can people get involved if they have no clue?
First of all, well played by telling me to give a short synopsis, because now that's in my head. So I got you. I see what you did there.
I need to tell myself that sometimes.
No, I absolutely live for Tuesdays now, because it is on Tuesdays we have two opportunities each day for administrators, leaders, just to come together and brainstorm. And it is absolutely phenomenal. So we get together. There's an opportunity at 9 a.m. Eastern time, and there's another opportunity at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And it's just this organic conversation where people, administrators, leaders from literally around the world. We have people coming from Australia now. So technically, I think they were there today because it was yesterday. I don't know how all that works in time zones and all that, but it was Wednesday morning for them when they joined us. And we have people from Canada. We have people from California, Illinois, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Florida, you name it. People join in. And it's just this group of people that say, hey, I want to be a part of this. And we sit around and we talk. We spend about 15, 20 minutes just getting to know each other a little bit better, getting to know each other's strengths, each other's weaknesses. And then we just throw it out there and say, who has something they want to talk about? And people just put topics and ideas on the table for us to discuss, to brainstorm, collaborate around. And I tell you what, man, the conversations that evolve from the people that show up are so phenomenal. The reason I said, yeah, I want to be a part of this is just that I can continue to learn and be a sponge. This isn't something where people just say, hey, Teach Better team, teach me something. And they throw things out there and we teach. It is truly it is an organic conversation with some of the best leaders in the world coming together and having these conversations. And it's growing every single week. New people continue to join us, and the conversations just grow and evolve each week too. So it is powerful. I love it.
I love something you said there, because it's normally when the Teach Better team puts on events, it's about sort of us telling others and sharing what we know about education and how we can help, right? And I'm not saying that that's not part of these conversations, because a lot of times we have you as an expert, myself and the rest of the team will hop in as we can. But it's so much more than that, because it's about this collaboration, and you're getting these nuggets from literally people with their own books and podcasts and expertise and educational experiences from across the globe. Like, one of the things that was amazing last week is seeing an administrator from Australia come in and explain that they've literally been in school for 5 months in person with no masks and no social distancing, which was just mind-blowing to me. So getting these different perspectives on how to transition out of the crazy times we're in. So I don't know about you, but I had the opportunity to be a part of the morning session yesterday, and one of the biggest, aside from the the intimate details of the group that we shared. So just to show you how tight-knit these groups are, we did get to share interesting facts about ourselves, and that conversation got super awesome and interesting yesterday. However, and if we shared some pretty fun stuff, and we had a good laugh about it. But when we got into the nitty-gritty of what do you need, right? A lot of the principals were starting their year and opening things up, or just finding these huge plans that they had to shift away from.
You're reading the comments.
I thought shift away from, and the topic of balance came up, and I think that was definitely a theme, at least for the morning session. And I thought that was a really powerful theme, because one of the big things we talked about, and I'll let you kind of take it from here, is the idea of like balance doesn't mean like dropping one thing and putting it over here, but more of like a harmony between things, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean all in here and dropping this completely, but like where are those priorities and adjusting those priorities. That was a huge thing for me, even, that I gleaned from it. Did you kind of take anything from that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, my mind was resonating on this concept all day and literally all night last night as well. A couple of the participants brought out some ideas as leaders, as administrators. They wrestle with this professional and personal guilt at times. Do they feel like they're giving all that they're supposed to give in specific situations? And there were a couple of people that responded and said, it's bizarre because society tells them, for example, on the weekends or in the evenings, they're supposed to shut down professionally and just give all of themselves to family or to their personal interests. And these administrators said, but that's not really how they're wired. Sometimes when they shut it down, they actually feel more guilty, because what gives them passion and what drives them is this ability to keep working. And you brought up that term harmony. I think that's something that Jeff Gargas brought up as well. It's not always about balance. You don't have to have an equal number of hours doing one thing and an equal number doing the other. It's yesterday, a lot of people talked about the fact that they played in bands before, or they sing, and this idea of harmony, where sometimes the bass has to drive, and sometimes you gotta bring the vocals up, and you gotta just figure out how it all flows. And sometimes that means for a week or two straight, it's all work. And then maybe there's a week or two where it's all home, or maybe it's whatever the case is, but different circumstances, different situations need different elements of you. Absolutely. Personally and professionally. You just had to go with that flow and remove the guilt. Just give what needs to be given in the situation in which you're presented. And I love that was like the foundation of our conversation. And then we got into some nitty gritties about what that means for individuals, so that you can avoid the burnout when you feel like you're doing all the things. How you respond when you're the person that likes to be questioned and likes people to come to you for the answers. What do you do about that? How do you empower, and how do you delegate? And it was just an amazing conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do want to get to the delegation thing, because I think that's another topic we need to talk about. But real quick, I love that what you're talking about in terms of like, it's not about balancing. It's not about equality. It's about equity of resources and energy and time, right? Yeah. We normally talk about this in the case of things like demographic equity or instructional equity or universal design for instruction. But I also think that it not only instruction, but it works for leadership in our management, in our time and our energy as well. For example, if my job demands something of me giving it what that needs is going to make me able to more equitably separate myself later if I need to. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like this balance of like, if I put an extra 2 or 3 hours in on the weekends, I'm now making my week more equitable and balanced, because now I'm ahead of the game instead of always trying to catch up. So I think I think as leaders, and I need to tell myself this a lot too, it's not about like totally shutting this off and committing 100% to this. It's about, what's going on in the day? Does my family need me? Can I give them what they need? Can my personal life get what it needs? But I'm going to commit some time to getting ready for the week so that my week's smoother. And if my week's smoother, I can now find that harmony and stop working after 6 p.m. and then focus more on my family instead of I totally shut off this weekend and now my brain's going 24 hours a day and I can't turn it off because I'm constantly playing catch up, right? So I really love that idea of it. It's about what each component of your life needs and giving it that versus totally shutting something off or turning something on and
Yeah.
then removing the guilt for doing that. And the truth is, I'm hoping that we all have loving family members and support systems that they're not going to love it all the time if we have to work, but like that understand that as well. And I think that's another important piece of this, right?
Yeah.
Saying like being transparent about that so that you don't have to feel the guilt, right?
So spot on. I don't know if you're familiar with Cass Nelson. Cass Nelson is this amazing, amazing woman from Oklahoma. She
Okay.
is an elementary school principal. Her husband is a superintendent. But that's just the basics, okay? Cass
Sure.
Nelson, they also work on a farm. They live on a farm. Aside from just being an elementary school principal, she also has to drive the school bus. They take care of the grounds and the maintenance of the school. Like they go out and they shovel the snow in the winter. She's got kids, so she's always at the ball fields. And she has a running streak right now where she's approaching 2,000 days in a row. Okay, I had a conversation with Cass one day and just said, you got to explain to me, how do you find balance in all of these things? And she was very clear about this. She said, I don't have any kind of balance whatsoever. I just choose the priorities in the moment. If I say something's important to me, I do it. When I say I'm going to my kid's game, I'm going to my kid's game and I'm watching the game. My family knows that my running streak is important. So I carve out a half hour a day and I go for a run. And to some people, that half hour seems like, oh my gosh, how do you find a half hour every day? But she broke it down and said, a half hour a day is 2% of my day. I can give up 2% of my day to fill my passion. And that's going to, the other 98% of my day is going to feel so much more valuable because I gave up 2%. I mean, that's crazy.
I love that.
So,
but it's such a cool way to look at it, right? So like, I would argue they have these screen time things on our devices now. Like I would argue, and I'm guilty of this too, like the time when you wake up in the morning or when you're sitting at bed at night, right? Normally those are the times when we kind of grab our phone and scroll for a little bit, see what's going on in the day, get sucked into Facebook or anything else. Like that's fine. But like, I would argue, or if we're watching Netflix before we go to bed, like, could you grab an extra 30 minutes from Orange is the New Black? Could you grab it? You know what I mean? Like, so like, I love that you talked about priority, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily about there's not enough time. Everyone has the same amount of that time, right? It's about what are you prioritizing that time for? And having that time for yourself is absolutely important. But to a lot of people, that run streak is me time. For me, and I know you're probably similar, like that's my meditation, man. Like that's my stress relief. That's like how I get going for the day. That's how I make sure I can give everything I possibly can. But it also has the side benefit of I'm helping my health, I'm improving. But the way I look at that is if you're healthier and more well as a human, you can give more as a professional, right? And I talked about this in the Mastermind, right? Like Peter Parker is the reason Spider-Man exists, not the other way around. And if Peter Parker doesn't take care of himself, Spider-Man can't exist, to get nerdy for a second, okay? Because we have to take care of our humanity before we take care of our superhumanity. You know what I mean? Like,
and I'm gonna segue us a little bit here because I think this is so applicable and so relevant to our conversations yesterday, both in the morning session and the evening session. We had very similar conversations, even though there were different groups there, which tells me this is a need right now for leaders everywhere who are struggling with this idea of balance and prioritization. I've had conversations with administrators prior to COVID and even right now who will say things to me like, I would love to get into classrooms more. I just don't have the time. I would love to pour into my teachers more. I just don't have the time. But here's the reality of it. We all have the time. We just have to pick our priorities. And as leaders, we're focused on processes. We're focused on products and numbers, or however you choose to frame it. But more importantly, we are focused on people. We are in the people business. And if people are your priority, then you have to make them your priority. You carve out that half hour day, 2% of your day, whatever it is, to go and just connect with people. Like in this mastermind group where we're only together for an hour for these meetings. And in each of these, 20 to 30 minutes is just us talking as people, not solving problems, but just getting to know people, because that's what's more important. It's about the people. So, again, not to nerd out and geek out with like, I talk to people about assessment all the time. They say, I hate that we have to take so much time away from our instruction to assess all the time. You don't have to. If you embed it into what you do on a regular basis because it's a priority, then you're not taking time away. If you're an administrator and a leader and you think that observing classrooms and getting to know students and getting to know teachers is important, then make it important. Find the time. And then all of the maintenance requests and technology requests, that's the stuff that you can then delegate to somebody else, that you can then empower somebody else to rise up, somebody that wants some of that experience, that just wants to be part of your team, somebody that wants to feel important and valued. Give them those tasks so you can go focus on the stuff that you think that you were called to do.
Absolutely. I love that. Another piece that you just mentioned was delegation. So now we're going to get into some of the solutions that we talked about when you are feeling overwhelmed, when you do feel like your time is maxed. And one of the big parts of the conversation to me was like, be willing to delegate, trust, and build other leadership in others, because it doesn't always have to be you. I have the same problem myself. I'm really bad about delegating anything to anyone, honestly. But it's something I need to get better at. And one of the ways to look at that is it's not always about helping yourself. It could be about building the capacity of someone else and building leadership in others. And I really loved that avenue that we took in our conversation yesterday. I thought that was really topical, and I thought that was really, really important.
Yeah. So I'm going to plug a book real quick, and it's not a book that either one of us are a part of, but it's a classic. It's been around for like 80 years. So if you're a leader and you have not read this book, go get it. It's by Dale Carnegie. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It sounds like a cheesy title, but it is a powerful, powerful book. And in this book, they explain that as humans, we have basic needs, and we know what all the basic needs are. We all took classes and learned about Freud back when we were in college. But one of the basic needs that we all have is this need to feel valued or to feel important. And we all fill that need in different ways. As leaders, our job is to make sure that that need is being filled in others. So when we talk about empowerment and delegation, like you said, it's not always about just us trying to find help for us. It's not always just about us pawning tasks off on other people so that other people can do the grunt work we don't want to do. We have to empower other people so that they feel valued and important. Sometimes you just have to tag in to people and say, hey, I think that you could do this task and you can do it well. I value you and I trust you to do this. It's going to ease your burden, but it's going to empower them. I mean, a real simple example, me doing the Mastermind thing for you guys right now. That is a prime example. I just wanted to be a part of the Teach Better team. And I said, how can I help? And you guys said, boom, here you go. And now I'm able to do this thing. I feel valued. I feel important because I was given this task and this responsibility, and you guys trust me to do it. I think far too often in our schools and our places of leadership, because we're leaders, we feel like we were chosen to be leaders because we are good at our jobs and we could just do it and not have to burden anybody else. But if we frame it differently, and it's not burdening somebody else, it's empowering somebody else, it's giving somebody else an opportunity to rise up, then it's a lot easier to delegate, because you're not just delegating and giving, you're empowering and lifting up.
I love that. It's focusing on opportunity as opposed to additional burden, right? Providing an opportunity. And I think a lot of times, I think this translates even to educators in the classroom. So like if I'm a teacher, I stand in the front of my room, I give out an assignment, and I do this in my workshops all the time. You're asking for failure if you just go, everyone, here's your assignment, start working, let me know if you need anything. Like this whole idea of like passive support, passive kind of like help. I think that's a really dangerous thing, because then it requires action by this other party to kind of take advantage, as opposed to, even if you're the teacher who wants to take on that leadership role, something I've tried to get out of doing. I still do this because as just in good faith to people, and I'll say, if you need anything, please let me know. But I will qualify that with, I think it could really be great if I could do X, Y, and Z. If you'd like me to take this on, please let me know. So now you've literally let the person know, I'm willing to do this. But as a leader, you can flip that and go, I'd really love, I think you might be a great fit for X, Y, and Z that I need working. Is this something you'd be willing to take on? So like, I think being willing to go for the ask is the hardest part of this, because we don't want to like my paradigm that I have to shift is that I'm bothering people. Like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when I ask, I'm bothering, as opposed to when I offer, I'm empowering. Like and like in my head, I need to make that shift, and I'm still working on it. It's not perfect yet because I still feel like I'm bugging someone when I ask them to do something. But I think as leaders, we can shift and take it from, I'd like to provide you this opportunity to be empowered and to contribute. And a lot of times, people are willing to do more than they think they are, or they're willing to do more, or they want to do more than they let on in some of those settings. And if they don't want to, that's fine too. But if we haven't given the opportunity, we'll never know. And then it's still on our shoulders.
Yeah, so a couple things to respond to that, because this builds off of the evening conversation. So last night you talked about having these leaders from Australia. Yesterday, the leader that which you described that you met last week from Australia, she actually brought a friend from Australia. So there are two Aussies hanging out with us, and
I love it.
It was so amazing because our conversation talked about how people met and how they began their leadership journeys, and we started talking about how some of us as leaders stepped into this leadership realm because somebody else saw leadership in us and came up to us and said, I think that you could be a leader because of X, Y, Z. Have you ever thought about pursuing a principalship? Have you ever thought about a central office job? And people didn't necessarily come up and say, hey, can you do this job for me? They qualified that with, because I see this specific characteristic and this trait in you. And as leaders, that is our responsibility. That's one of the reasons we have to get to know people so that we can identify strengths. And it's just like in a classroom if we have that strength-based approach, we're constantly looking for things that people can do well so that we can tap into that and use it for the future. And that is the power of delegation. It's not just finding what tasks can you pawn off. It's finding the skills in other people so that people can launch off and say, I can do this skill well, or I can do this task well because somebody saw this skill base within me. And that's what we need to be willing to do. So as a classroom teacher, for example, it's going to take me back a decade and a half now. 20 years ago when I first started off, I had co-teachers in my classroom all the time, but they weren't co-teachers to me. They were people that I just let stand in the back of the room because I had no idea how to utilize them.
Do with them.
Yeah. And I thought, I've got this. This is my classroom. It's just another body that could be somewhere else, as opposed to me trying to figure out how to utilize their skills. They were qualified, certified people that were amazing adult educators. But because I thought I got this, I completely underutilized the support I could have had and did a disservice to kids. And as leaders, we do the same thing in our schools all day long. When we've got 50, 60, 70 adults walking around a building that we're trying to treat all the same, as opposed to trying to identify their individual unique strengths that we can tap into to really take our schools to the next level.
I love that. So taking advantage of the people and the staff that you have. I love that. I love that. I love that. But we also as leaders have to be able to look for those strengths, right?
Boom. Mm-hmm.
So if we're always looking for like us being the decision maker, right, we're never going to find those strengths because we're the one trying to always completely drive 100% of the ship versus going, how can I build this team? And one of the things we do, even when we're working with districts with the Teach Better team, is as we get further into, Livia, how are you? Bobby, Livia, Aaron, hope you guys are still watching. Livia, great to see you as always. One of the things that we can tend to do is we try to take everything onto our own. So we kind of blind ourselves to the ability of others, as opposed to seeking out building up leadership in our team, seeking out finding the genius and ability and the amazing qualities that our team has. So that there's this dual benefit of that, right? So we not only do we take things off of our plate if they're able, but we also empower those other people to become leaders themselves, even if it's in a small way. And I think that's a huge, not only benefit to leaders themselves, but organizations, like you said. And if you can trust, and we do this on the team a lot, right? It's like, we inherently trust people to just like do what they say they're going to do. Like I know that you take care of this administrator mastermind, just as an example, right? Like the team knows that if there's a grid method workshop, like I got it under control. They're not checking in 57 times to make sure it goes well. They're like, he's got it. Like he's the lead on that. Just like you're the lead on these masterminds. But like, if you don't have that trust and you're constantly questioning and micromanaging, you're causing more stress for yourself, right? Like as a leader, you're just like making your own life more miserable as opposed to building a team that can like
Mhm.
help you row in the same direction.
That's it. And again, this is what Mastermind is all about. It's about us brainstorming, coming up with all these thoughts and paradigm shifts. As leaders, we spend so much time trying to fix problems. And to fix problems, that means we spend a lot of time going out there trying to identify problems and find things that are broken. But the best leaders are the ones that go out there and find the things that are working and find ways to magnify that. And this summer during lockdown, I was guilty. I'm a Detroit Pistons fan, but I watched The Dance. I had to watch the Michael Jordan story, if you will.
Yeah.
That turned into the Phil Jackson story. That turned into whatever. And although Michael Jordan was the centerpiece around it, there were so many other little leadership nuggets that you could pull out of that. And one of those was when they were talking about John Paxson and Steve Kerr, these guys, these journeymen that were there to support Michael Jordan. Phil Jackson, as the coach, did not try to take Steve Kerr and say, I'm going to turn you into Michael Jordan. I'm going to focus on your ability that you can't jump, that you can't dribble. And he didn't do that. He said, okay, I found something that you can do. You can shoot a spot up 3-pointer. So I'm going to work some plays where you get yourself wide open, where we're going to set some screens that you can shoot some spot up threes, because that's your strength and that's going to help us advance. He didn't say, you're not Michael Jordan. Every practice, we're going to be working on your calf strength so you can learn to jump. We're going to work on your ball handling skills so that you can learn to drive the lane. He said, no, here's what you can do. It is my responsibility now as the leader to put you in positions where you can succeed within your strengths. Yeah. That's what we have to do. Find people's strengths and then set them up to succeed.
I love it, man. I love it. So we're kind of coming up on the top of the half hour here. I don't want to keep you all morning as we both have kids, doing all sorts of things in our houses and everything else. So real quick, we talked a ton about balance this week. I think we've kind of covered most of the things we talked about. If I'm an educational leader and I want to get involved in this and I want to be part of these conversations, what's the best way to do it?
So there's a couple of ways, but the easiest way, you can see along the banner there. Just go to teachbetter.com/mastermind. And when you go there, it's not like we're collecting all your information that we're selling to other. It's just so that you can get the Zoom link to get in. That's all it is. So you can get the link. That's one. Two, if you say, oh, I'm not comfortable doing all that, you see our social media handles right there. Just shoot one of us a message. Yep. We'll take care of you. Or if you know somebody that's already a part of this, or if you're already a part of it, just tag along with them. Totally cool. Totally fine. The mastermind group, it's powerful on Tuesdays, but the real magic happens from Tuesday to Tuesday. So if you can find somebody that you can continue the conversations with throughout the week and go with somebody else, it's just that much better.
And honestly, that's one of the cool things that's happened is like we've grown this from just the mastermind on Tuesdays to now there's a Voxer chat and a thread of conversations. So like the help and the close-knitness of this group is just like amazing to me. Dave, I'm going to give you a ton of the credit for continuing to grow that and really solidify some of those connections. I think you've done an amazing job, and I'm just amazingly happy to have you on the team doing this work and making this the best possible mastermind it can be for educational leaders. Because one of the truths is educational leaders have had the longest year probably of their entire careers, because most principals, administrators, curriculum directors, superintendents didn't stop working since March of last year. Most of them did not take July off like they normally do because that's when the central office closes. Most of them didn't take that vacation because they had to figure out how to social distance their school or get enough PPE or get enough hand sanitizer for their class. Like all of these things, right? So this year more than ever is probably when our administrators need us most. And I'm so happy to have you and your amazing expertise and your awesome ability to kind of bring people together. So I just want to personally thank you for continuing to drive this mission of these mastermind groups. And I'm really excited to see this grow, man.
It's an amazing group, and I'm just so happy to be along for the ride.
Absolutely. So I'm hoping next Wednesday, I got to look at my calendar. It may be a slightly different time depending on availabilities and things like that, but we're going to try to do this every single Wednesday, kind of bring you the highlights from the week. So if you just missed the chat or you can't make it because that last minute meeting came up, something like that, because you're an administrator and we get that. Okay. You can hopefully listen to this, catch it, and then maybe you'll feel caught up and you can join the conversation. So Dave, thank you very much. I hope you have an amazing day, and everyone have a fantastic day. And as always, stay awesome.